5 years and still talking. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
How are you? It's Alex Bennett, and it is the Ramble. So, usually Friday nights we've had my wife on, but for the last month, she has not appeared on this program because she doesn't want to. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do for a half hour or 25 minutes while she isn't there. And tonight I felt really lazy. And what I decided I would do is go back to an old interview we did a while back. And first of all, every now and then it goes out of sync, and every now and then it has glitchy problems. At the end of the interview, it freezes, actually. But it's worth playing because it's an interview with a guy that I knew when I was starting out in this business and was one of the reasons I got into this business. And I heard that he was around and he was still alive at like 92 years of age. And I figured, why not talk to him? It couldn't hurt, could it? So I'd like to replay that interview in case you didn't hear it with Ted Randall. May not be familiar to a lot of our audience, and it's not as familiar to me as it was years and years and years ago when I met this man. You don't remember meeting me, do you?
Actually, I do not.
Yeah. I used to go by the name Jerry Bennett, and I was a aspiring broadcaster at that time.
Well, at that time, I met so many people because I was traveling around the world.
Yeah.
And meeting people all the time that, I have to apologize.
Oh,
I don't remember.
Believe me, I didn't think you would, but let me tell you a little story about how I met up with you and what influence you had on me. And a lot of times we influence people and we never know we did. You were on a station in San Francisco, which when I was a teenager was all the rage. KOBY, Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah.
1550.
Yeah. This station, when it came on, was the first top 40 station in the Bay Area. When people described what it was going to be, most of us went, who would want to listen to that? And then it went on the air and we couldn't stop listening to it. And your involvement in that station was as a jock, and I think you were you the program director?
Yes, I was both. Yeah.
We'll get to your meeting up with me in a bit, but talk about those days at KOBY, because those were the days when Top 40 really started. I mean, it had never existed prior to that time. Gordon McClendon, Todd Storrs supposedly came up with the format, but they didn't do it in San Francisco. Explain how KOBY came to be.
Well, KOBY came to be because let's see, I have to think of the owner now, Dave. It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah, I'm the same way with names these days.
At any rate, I was at a radio station in Omaha, Nebraska, when Todd Storrs had just recently started.
Yeah.
Top 40.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued because it was a daytime radio station. And it was number one by far of all the radio stations in Omaha. I was at KOIL, KOIL in Omaha, which later went to a top 40 format and so forth. But I left KOIL and went to a radio station in Ottumwa, Iowa,
wow.
which is way the hell and gone somewhere. At any rate, it was called KLEE because the owner's name happened to be Lee something or other. And Lee was friends with Dave, it'll come to me in a second, who had several radio stations. And I wasn't to stay there. I was kind of learning the business and moving on, and I'd been at Omaha for a year and then at KLEE, and I moved on some more. And I remembered that 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 the radio station in what the heck was it? It was I was with Coyle.
Yeah.
At, at any rate, I remember Top 40 and Dave. And when I was looking for a job, I found Dave had a radio station in Mississippi. And I went out to see him, and he hired me. I was in need of a job, and he hired me. While he was there, he was telling everybody that he was about to buy a radio station, KOBY, in San Francisco. I think it was called KEAR before.
Yes, it was, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. And I convinced him to let me go out to San Francisco. He gave me $100 and said, "You're on your own, and I'll see you when you get there." And it was, I was pretty pushy, and I was barely on the air in Mississippi. WGVM was a radio station in Mississippi. At any rate, I got to San Francisco, and we all had to wait for a strike to get over. And when we did, we put together the radio station. But we had nobody who knew anything about Top 40, including Dave, the owner. And so we put it together, and within, I guess it was about 6 months after we were on the air, I became program director. But prior to that, we had been on the air maybe, I'd say a couple, 3 months maybe, around 13 weeks, and we already were showing something like 50% of the radio audience.
Wow.
It was incredible at that time, yeah. So we were there, and from there I went on to do, from that I became program director, but then I was also invited to go out for a television show in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that show. It became the Ted Randall Show at that time. And but on KOBY, we had to use stage names. I was called Ted Rogers at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But made the switch over pretty nicely. So I was I had the TV show for it was 1958.
Right. I remember it because I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was 18 in 1958. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And KOBY was just this force of nature that happened. All of a sudden, it just blew everything off the map. And
we knew we had to have 40 top hits.
Yeah.
They've also had a radio station called KOSI in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of patterned after that, but we didn't really have a pattern, and he didn't know what to do. We just basically played the top 40 popular records at the time.
The idea was top 40 plus maybe like 5 up-and-comers plus a hit, hit.
Well, the oldies but goodies had not arrived as yet.
These things were in the process of becoming oldies but goodies as you were playing them.
Yeah, that's it. At any rate, that was the story. Well,
that had to be Ted.
On TV, when I went on TV, I left radio at that time. But a year later, I wasn't happy with my contract and left TV. But just at that particular time, a new radio station in Oakland was coming up.
KEWB.
I applied for it, and I applied for it and got the job there.
And KEWB was such a force of nature that it killed KOBY.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and
we had a program director, Chuck Blower from Hollywood,
right,
who was the overall program director of that, and was of the Kroll Collier chain.
Now, I don't remember at which point exactly it was that I met you, but I knew of you as being a force in the broadcasting business. And as a kid who was coming up, and I was working over KTIM in San Rafael, doing part-time, and I wanted radio in the worst way, and I figured the guy to talk to was Ted Randall. So I called you up, and I said, I'd like to talk to you and come over and see what advice you have for me. And you were nice enough to say, sure. And I remember going over there, and you counseling me on what I should do, and eventually I think you gave me a job. I don't know. You had become one of the earliest versions of a radio consultant.
Well, I created the broadcast consulting business.
Yeah.
Nobody else had done it before.
Yeah.
And my first radio station there was KSRO in Santa Rosa.
Right. But I went to KLAD in Klamath Falls, which I believe you also.
Yes, I did.
Consulted.
Sometime in there, I had 30 radio stations I was consulting with on the West Coast.
Yeah. But the fact that, the fact that I could talk to somebody in the business and just bend their ear was a thrill for a kid at that age, I remember one piece of advice you gave me that still kind of resonates with me. I said to you, we were talking about music, and I said, well, all my friends really like this kind of music. And you said to me, don't ever use that as a yardstick because you hang out with people who have the same interest and mentality that you do. You've got to think in terms of what the public wants. And that lasted with me. That lasted with me to this day, to this conversation.
Well, that was one of the premises. I think what worked with my consulting radio stations was precisely that I had to worry about what would please the people, not what the people wanted, because the people seemed that said, I talked with adults who said, "Oh, I'd never put that trash on my radio station." Pardon me.
Yeah.
They said they would never put that trash on the radio station. I said, yeah, but most of your audience wants this trash that you won't put on. They said, oh. And finally they allowed it, and they were astounded. They were just astounded because it was what everybody. It's a pretty much a premise with most businesses. If you talk about the clothing business, they'll say the same thing. It's not what you like yourself. It's immaterial. It's what the people will like.
Yeah. And that piece of advice, I'm sitting here today, how many years later, I don't even want to count them, remembering sitting in that office with you and you telling me that specific piece of information,
Well, it shows that my brains don't go very far. The right thing, I guess.
No, but it was terrific. And, for a kid my age and wanting to go into the business, you gave me kind of a push in a certain direction. And I know didn't think you would remember me because I was such an insignificant part of your life at that point. But for me, you were a major part of my life.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I was a decent friend to you at the time.
Yeah, and I went on to have a career that lasted until about 5 years ago, and was very successful in San Francisco, and I was with Sirius XM, And when I think about the influences that I've had in this business, there were a lot of them, but Ted Randall was one of them.
That's amazing.
And so when I heard then I heard you were still alive, I went, my God, I got to talk to this guy,
Well, I'm getting up there in the years. They're moving along pretty rapidly now.
Yeah, well, you never thought you'd get this old. Otherwise,
no, that's true.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking? I always tell people how old I am. I'm 79, so I figure you're getting close
92.
to 90. You're 92. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. You were in the radio business long after that, consulting and being on the air and so on. When you look at radio today, I tell people, the radio business really doesn't exist anymore.
It's right.
That's
correct.
When you and I were in this business, it was an exciting place to be,
We were able to offer something to people they couldn't get anywhere else within a relatively short distance.
Yeah.
In other words, they didn't have to go 50 miles to go find something. It was on on the radio, and the radios were tuned in, and they were able to find. Todd Storrs was the one who found it
Yeah.
because he listened to jukeboxes. But when
Well, the legendary story that I got, because in the later years I worked for Gordon McClendon. And
Dave Siegel was the owner of KOBY,
oh,
by the
okay,
way.
great. See, eventually you
Yeah.
remember the names. I mean, I just find that that what's happening today is that all the consolidation of the radio stations and the fact that all they care about is keeping the station on the air. I mean, it's not the business it was where we were having a good time. As I say, I work for Gordon McClendon.
Yes.
And the legend had it that the way Top 40 was invented was he and Todd Storrs after the war were sitting in a diner somewhere,
Yeah.
and they noticed
Listening.
that the waitress kept going over to the jukebox and playing the same 5 songs over and over and over again.
Yep.
And one thing led to another, and they came up with Top 40.
Well, beyond Gordon McClendon, that gave Todd Storrs the idea, and he took his father had the money so he bought him the daytime radio station, KOWH.
Yeah.
And when he took a couple of his announcers over, and they were having lunch at another restaurant, and they were listening to they looked at the jukebox, and they found that they played the same 40 records over and over. They made a list of it, one by one by one, and they found out that those were the only records that people played. And so they tried it on the radio station, and immediately they became very, very well. They became the number one radio station, at least during the day, because they were a daytimer.
I think it's an amazing story. It's an amazing history, and it's the thing that pretty well. What happened was radio was in trouble at the time you went with KOBY and so on.
Yeah.
It was in trouble because television existed, and it was still trying to do what television could do better: drama shows, comedy shows, whatever. And so this came along and literally hypoed the radio. It gave the radio business a whole new reason for existence.
Forgive me for interrupting, but the only music available at that time was Music of Your Life, which hadn't been invented yet, but it was the Glenn Miller big band stuff, and that was all they had. That was until Top 40.
Well, I'll tell you what Top 40 did. It put my father out of work, because my father used to play in orchestras at the radio stations in San Francisco, and after a while, they didn't need the orchestras anymore.
Well, there are a few things that time has told us, and one of the things about Top 40 or Top 30 or whatever you want to call that type of thing, I've discovered that a hit radio station like that has a life expectancy of about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The way it works, because somebody else comes along and improves it, changes it, or whatever have you. KOBY lasted maybe 5 years. KEWV lasted about 5 years. KYA came in and had its fling. And throughout all the various radio stations throughout the United States, they all had their 5-year fling.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the only one that I know of who's ever said that. But I look back at all the radio stations, and I'm in touch with a ton of radio stations in Canada and other places. And the story always seems to be, well, it was AM. It wasn't AM that made the difference. It was the formula of the format.
Right.
I mean, I consulted with radio stations clear across Australia and did the same thing with all those radio stations. At the time, I didn't know that I was going to have trouble after 5 years, but then I wasn't involved with them.
I'll tell you what, you say 5 years, but I worked at a station that lasted quite a while here in New York, which was WMCA.
MCA was different, yes.
Yes, it broke that 5-year rule. I mean, it was a sensation, and WABC came along and competed against it, but the two of them were going neck and neck, but it wasn't like they were being replaced by something else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess one of the rare pleasures that I had in my life was winding up working at WMCA because it was a legendary radio station.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably was, what, considering the size of New York City,
Yeah.
it probably was a very, very special thing.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I mean, I was working there with. Well, it was the end of Murray the K's career. That was about his last New York station.
Yeah.
But I was working with all the greats, and I'm this kid coming into town. I was thrilled. It's absolutely thrilled. What do you think? Do you listen to radio anymore?
I listen to Sirius XM.
I used to be on
I
Sirius
have
XM.
a channel that I bother with.
What's
and
that?
I listen to it in the evenings because when I listen to it, I'm not competing. I'm no longer working in radio. I'm just listening for what I want to listen to.
Yeah. And what channel is that?
I listen to channel 69. It's called Escape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They play good music versions of older hits.
Yeah. I was.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
I listen to those constantly and kind of go back to some of the things that I like and enjoy, but I'm not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course not. I'm not working either. I got let go by Sirius XM after 10 years with them just about 5 years ago. But just
I found that now in my studio, I'm a painter now, and I've been painting.
By the way,
I've been painting for 60 years. So
by the way, I looked at your stuff online, and it took my breath away. I was amazed that you just didn't spend doing that for all of your life.
No, I did as much of it as I could while I was in radio.
Yeah.
But I was busy doing radio, so I was limited as to what I could do. Once I retired, then I went full bore into painting.
Yeah.
And I've been painting ever since.
If you had a major memory to take away from your career in broadcasting, is there a moment or a time that you would say was the time you like to remember as being just a great moment for you?
I would say there are two.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I was contacted by some people in Hawaii who knew about me, and because Hawaii was the United States, and they knew about me, and they were able to set up my consulting in Australia. Mm-hmm. And I worked in Australia for quite a number of years. That is, consulting and traveling back and forth.
Right.
And I'm known in Australia as the one who brought radio up to date, something like that. I brought popular music radio to Australia. And the other one is that I was at a Billboard conference, and I was called by the owner of radio station CHUM, Alan brains again. And anyway, the owner asked if I'd have lunch with him when I did, and he said, we want to hire you. That was 1968. And they hired me to be the consultant for not only CHUM, but for their entire broadcasting group. And I had a 2-year contract with them. It was a wonderful time, and I got to know Canada really, really well after that.
And that's where you live now.
Yeah, I've been here since late 1974.
Did you ever become a citizen, or you just?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, I'm also a citizen. I have dual citizenship.
Gee, you got that great health service now. You have that.
It is the best that anybody's ever seen.
Yeah.
If I had stayed in the United States, I'd be dead. Well, I wouldn't have been able to afford all the operations that I've had.
Yeah.
I had bad legs and some clogged arteries, and it would have cost at least $500,000, $600,000.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost me anything.
Yeah, well, our signal is kind of freezing up on us now, unfortunately, but that's the nature of Skype. But Ted, I thank you so much for spending time with us. This is an absolute pleasure, and I just wanted to tell you and thank you for sending me in the right direction in this business.
Well, if I had something good that I did for you, I'm most appreciative I had that opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Ted Randall.
5 years and still talking. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey, everybody. Okay, that was Ted Randall. And oh, wait a minute, I gotta put myself on. See, I can't even know. I'm putting myself on. Let me see here. Let me go to the. Let me open up the lines here on the Skype. A little freezing at the end there, but I just enjoyed it when I caught up with this guy because, as I say, there are people in your life who influence what you do and what you've become. And he was a big influence. And there he was, not knowing it, not realizing it. And I'm sure, I hope somebody comes up to me sometime and says, you were an influence on me. And I'm sure it wouldn't be Howard Stern because he'll never admit it. But you know, it would be, if it happens to me, I'll be delighted that I was an influence on somebody. Anyway, in case you want to call, we use a thing called Skype. If you can negotiate it, give us a call. Oh, look, I'm wearing my checkered pants tonight. So anyway, our number, our Skype call, okay, if you want to call it, is GabNet Live, GABNETLIVE. You just, if you have Skype, just go and type that in, and it'll come up with our thing, and you just call it, and then we will talk to you. Okay. Also, I've done a few changes over at Gabnet.net. We now on the on-demand have pictures of the various shows. I don't know if that's making it too cluttered, but let me know what you think of it. It's just it's a little nuance that I suddenly realized I could do. Anyway, I'm waiting for people to call. It's Friday night, and I just saw Charlie Wallace came online, so he may be the first one that calls tonight. So we'll wait and see here. Oh boy, yeah. So I'm feeling a little better today than I was yesterday. I'm tired, but I'm still feeling better. My stomach is in better shape. Oh, here comes Josh Wheeler, ladies and gentlemen. Josh is the first one to show up here. As soon as he turns on his camera, I'll let you see him. Okay. There we go. Okay, there's Josh right there. And here comes Charles Wallace. Let me see here. Charlie probably will show up in the same place that he showed up before. Yeah, there he is. You see? There he is. Okay, so we have two of our people, and here comes Phil Meyer. And when I click on him, he'll probably go into the same place he was on last night, which is in the third place. There we are. There's our beginning of our citizen panel, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
That was a good interview.
Huh?
That was a good interview. I really liked him on The Odd Couple.
Ted Randall. Yeah, no, that was Tony Randall.
Different Randall.
So, you enjoyed it, you say?
Yeah, actually, I did.
Yeah. You've heard it before. You heard it before, didn't you, when I ran it originally?
I heard more of it this time.
Yeah. Do you guys have Charlie as a one panel here, half the page? It's really strange what goes on here.
No, I don't.
No,
he's just like the other you and.
Well, it doesn't matter. How I have the page here, folks, that you're seeing is of my own design. Okay.
And it looks perfect.
And if you use Skype, it's going to look a little weird to you. Okay. But give us a call anyway at GabNet Live is the Skype handle. Hello, Charlie. How are you this evening?
Doing great.
Yeah?
Had a great week.
You had a great week?
Yeah.
I had this stomach problem yesterday. Can I tell you about something very personal? I went to the bathroom a lot. Okay, I went to the bathroom a lot, and I created a external hemorrhoid.
Ooh.
Now I hear they go away after a while or something. You know, that I just put some ointment on there and they'll eventually disappear. Let me see here.
Preparation H.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to call Rob back because he just called, and I'll add him here and see if he picks up. He should have picked. We should have gotten him. There he is. Okay, there we go. Let me put him in a spot here. Rob Alfano. Were you calling on a different line, Rob, than you usually use, or a different computer? No.
No.
No. Oh, well, it should have just automatically realized that you were calling, but it didn't. So, what the hell? What the hell? Hello, Rob. We haven't heard from you all week long. You must have been busy. Either that or you were watching the Yankees.
Watching the Yankees and staying away from anything that has to do with the news.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've gotten so sick of it. I've gotten so sick of every time I turn on MSNBC, it's like they may as well call it just the all Trump all the time. I mean, there's nothing else on there. And there is other news, but you wouldn't know it. Looking at these news networks, you would not know there was other news. The only way you'd find it out is if you watch like the 6:30 news. It seems to cover everything. All right, wouldn't you say? Much better.
Yeah, I haven't turned on any of the news in weeks. Just got to the point where I get burned out on it.
So you heard
nothing's going to change.
So you heard that Trump is dead.
Don't tease him like
I still
that.
get headlines on my phone. I think that.
Yeah, he would also know that wasn't true, because otherwise there would be huge amounts of cheering outside his window.
That's right.
People honking their
Rob.
horns, partying.
How close are you to Virginia Beach?
About 4.5 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I go down there, and I have, the city of Virginia Beach is one of my customers. I go down there frequently.
Yeah, you heard about the shooting at the city offices?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Another shooting.
Yeah, another shooting.
11 dead, 6 wounded.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, Phil?
Guess the guy went postal.
Oh,
he was I don't know what the situation is, but he was a long-term city employee, and he went into he went into the offices at the Virginia Beach something, and he randomly went through the floors, very similar to the California 101 shooting.
What did he go through those floors with, Phil?
I think rubber bands and a yo-yo, but it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, it would have been something else.
No, you're hypothesizing. The fact was, it was, and I think I just think it's time we stop with this gun nonsense. It's just time to stop it.
I don't agree with you. So, but that's that's why
then,
America's America.
Okay, then come up with a solution.
I don't need a solution. I say arm everybody, but that's my solution.
Oh, great.
If those people weren't sitting ducks in a gun-free zone, this guy wouldn't have made it past the doorway.
You don't think so?
And you don't think there'd be if you armed everybody, you don't think that there would be just a lot of gunfire every which way, and innocent people would get hurt more because people have all these guns and they're not trained, and they fire.
Oh, I didn't say
it didn't work very well. It didn't work very well for Dodge City.
I didn't say that they shouldn't
We started
be
that
trained.
way.
We started that way, and it didn't work.
Yeah, they need to be trained.
Going back enough.
Oh, you mean also if we trained this guy, he would have been able to kill maybe 13, 14 people.
Right. And then even the wackos will be well trained.
We don't know enough about what this guy's deal was. We
okay.
don't know if he's a disgruntled Gabnet caller. There's no...
Whatever he is.
Common sense is gone in the world. That's why I stopped watching the news.
Yeah.
Because common sense is gone in the world.
You're absolutely right.
Common sense is gone. Up is down, left is right, white,
It's
it's
bizarre.
black.
You know what it is? It's Superman's Bizarro world.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
just everything.
Did you
is
hear
just so out
about
of
that
whack.
country western song that was done by this guy Rich? I forget his first name.
Charlie?
And John Rich. He did it with some of the people from Fox TV. It's called "Stop Talking About Politics," and it's actually hit #1 on the country music.
You know, just
chart.
because I stopped paying attention to the news and I stopped talking about this stuff doesn't mean I don't think that just because I stopped talking about it that all this shit's going to get better, right? I'm just burying my head in the sand. I
Yeah,
realize that we're going down the tubes and we're going down fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Because if you have an opinion, they kill you.
You got 4 opinions
Well,
to
and
your one
that'll
opinion.
come soon.
Yeah.
That'll come soon here, where your opinion will get you in trouble.
Yeah.
That's on its way. We're on our way there.
Alex, what do
Yeah.
you think about these companies like Netflix and Disney refusing to film in Georgia because of Georgia's passing of an abortion bill?
To begin with, you aren't stating it correctly.
All right, you state it, and I have another little ditty.
Oh, I'm sure you do. But let me answer your little question to begin with. They didn't say they weren't going to. What they said was, and let me also at the same time while I'm doing this, because I'm patting my head and rubbing my stomach, put Jeff in the mix here. But the point is that what they said is they are considering it, and one of the reasons they're considering it, and they're not saying it's a political decision, they're saying it's a business decision, is that the people who work there or go down there to work don't want to work there any longer. And
Correct.
that if enough of them don't want to work there, they feel there's no way they can continue to do business with Georgia.
Well, I understand
Now,
that.
that is basically very different from what you just said.
All right, there's two sides to
So
that.
say
Number
you were
one,
wrong. Say you were wrong.
I wasn't wrong.
Yes, you were. You were absolutely wrong. You were acting like they had made
I'm never wrong.
You were acting like they had made some political decision not to keep doing that in Georgia, and that's not what they said.
Well, let me finish.
Yeah.
Now, if they're so upset over Georgia passing this law, how come they will film in China? They will film in this Miramar where they just did a major film.
You're talking about one film. You're talking about one film in China. There are some deals with some Chinese movie companies over there, but they're the guys making the films.
This is let's say the Miramar one. I don't know the name of the movie.
Myanmar is probably the country.
Myanmar.
Myanmar,
right.
Yeah, and the
Myanmar.
thing is,
Miramar's
but you're talking
north
about
of Miami.
one movie. Who's making that movie? What company's making that movie?
Okay, well,
what company's making
this
that
country?
Movie? What company is making that movie?
Disney, I believe.
You believe?
I believe.
Do you know?
I don't write this stuff
Well,
down.
no, because what you're doing is you're yelling and screaming about Disney.
I haven't yelled and screamed about anything. Disney and Netflix are two of the companies that were cited in that they've made certain movies in a couple of countries that kill people, that kill gays, that do a lot of things that they don't like. But in Georgia, they're going to protest or not want to film there.
No, they're not
because their
protesting.
people are
Phil, I
uncomfortable.
told you they're not protesting. Didn't you hear me? They're not protesting. They are making a business decision because people who go down there as actors and as technicians and as makeup people and so on, if there are enough of them, according to Disney, that do not want to go down there, they will cease to make productions in Georgia because they won't be able to supply. And secondly, they feel that if they have some females who work down there and then they get pregnant, then somehow if they go anywhere else to go get an abortion, they can be arrested. So they don't want to be any part of that. They're watching out for their workers.
For Disney. The gays that work for Disney, if they go to Miramar.
No, wait a minute. You're saying, find me what company is making the movie in Miramar. Myanmar, or wherever
Okay.
it is. Go find it. Go find it, Phil. Go, Phil. Go. I won't listen to another word. I won't listen to another word you have to say
you're talking
until.
over me.
No, I
I'm
won't.
answering your
No, you're
question.
talking over
One
me.
of the-
No, Phil,
one of-
I am
one of
not
the
going to listen
programs-
to another word from you till you find out what movie company is doing that production in Myanmar.
Okay. Who made Narcos? That was Netflix, right?
Narcos. Yes.
Yeah, whatever. That was Netflix. That's one of them. The other one was and I don't know the name of the
Where
movie.
did you find this information?
Just on TV tonight.
No, you wasn't on TV.
Yeah, it was on Fox.
Oh, it was on Fox. I see.
What do you mean? Everything Fox
Okay,
says is a
okay.
lie?
You're in the timeout box now, so other people can talk. Okay.
Everything that Fox says is a lie. All right.
Yeah, it's close. You're very. That's the first thing you said that's right all night. Yes. What do you think of that, Rob? About Disney and Netflix? I think they're making the only decision they could make.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it. It's those kinds of things that haven't been paying attention to the news, and I don't care about those things because they don't really matter. I mean, I support them if they decide they don't want to do business with the state because they don't like the state's politics. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, if you don't want to do business in a state, that's Amazon decided they didn't want to do business with New York State, right?
Right.
So now Hollywood doesn't want to do business with Georgia.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
Whatever their reason is, it's a free country still.
And Phil's always into, well, they don't want to make stuff there, then they have the right not to make stuff there.
Yeah.
That's what you normally would say, Phil. Yeah.
Well, only when it suits their purposes,
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, Americana is going away. Freedoms that we had, that we enjoyed, the press and all that, it's all going away.
It's all going away.
It's all little at a time. It's eroding, sort of the way airplane seats got smaller. And
Yes,
smaller,
yes.
and
We
later
got fatter.
It didn't happen overnight. It happened over 10, 12, 15, 20 years.
No, we got fatter.
Look, airplane. We may have gotten fatter. You're right, but those seats,
Those
and
seats
the
have
legroom
gotten
and
smaller.
everything else has gotten smaller.
They definitely
And it's
have.
happened a little at a time, where you go, you don't notice it, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And that's what's happening to America, the way we knew it,
Yeah.
the way we were raised.
Yeah. So.
I miss the good old days.
Yeah, there's there's our good friend Tony, and his. Would you put your whole head in the picture, Tony?
I don't want to scare you out of the room.
No. What it'll do is if you move your head up more in there, it will see less of the wallpaper. And I think that wallpaper scares little children when they're watching here.
She thinks it's all the rage, my mother.
Huh?
It was in years ago. She said, I try to talk to her casually just to see what she says, like play stupid.
Yeah.
And I says, Alex, this has got to be 20 years old, she thinks. She doesn't remember that well.
Oh,
but it's 20 years old, believe me when I'm looking at it.
People got that. She had to have gotten that in maybe the 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, she thinks it's a minimum 20 years old.
Well, I think she's wrong. I think it's minimum 40 years old. What does that wallpaper look like to you, Rob?
What's that?
What does the wallpaper look like to you?
It reminds you of my great-grandmother's house.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, this is in
My mother was
Queens. You're
Brooklyn.
close.
Well, that's what that reminds me of.
Wow.
Only everybody spoke Italian. So.
Everybody's.
My mother, she understands a little bit, but she don't speak it fluently. I kind of wish I knew Italian a little more, but my grandmother, who passed away years ago, she spoke both.
It's funny. I don't know how to speak it, but the dialect, the Sicilian dialect, I recognize when I hear it.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you hear it in The Godfather, in the movie The Godfather. I was on a subway one day when I was still living in New York, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I heard these two men talking. And I was staring at them, and they must have been wondering, what the hell are you staring at? And it was because it took me back to my childhood. You don't hear it anymore. And I had to say something to them. I was like, you guys speak in Sicilian, right? And I said, because pardon me for staring, but my family, I grew up with this language and I haven't heard it in 30 years. And it just, wow.
Let me test you. Do you know what this means? Phenomenal?
Phenomenal. Yeah.
I think it's fuck you. My grandmother
is it? I'm not sure if it's fuck you or not, but I know it's an
a bad word.
Italian. Yeah.
Whenever they were to argue in the house, my grandmother would turn to Italian, so I wouldn't understand it. Like if she was cutting
my parents, when I was a kid, my parents would speak in Yiddish, so I wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, they tell the whole story in English, and then when they get to the part they don't want you to hear, they switch languages on you.
And
Alex, Yiddish was Meshuggah crazy in the head?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember my grandfather saying he's Meshuggah. That's crazy in the head.
Yeah, crazy in the head.
I hear some noise in the background. Is that Alex's silverware being moved around that he lost on his housewarming party?
I'll send it to you later. He'll never know this post is gone. No, I would never take anything from anybody.
Anyway, so so you're absolutely right, Rob. That we're living in a country now that has no civility at all, and the tone has been set by a certain individual.
You know where I think this started? I think all of this started right around the time of the OJ trial. Because I think it was the really polarizing time, and people were on either side, and I don't think anybody gave a shit what was right or wrong. You rooted for, you had to be right, regardless of what side you were on, and I was involved in it because I lived it every day because we covered the trial when I was at Court TV, right? So you were not going to convince anybody, and it was this divide. It really was. Rodney King and OJ and all this 1995, and that was to me the beginning of all of this divisiveness in this country, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. Now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Rob, that was a racial divide at that point. I mean,
but
things
still,
were being.
But Alex, it still goes back to the same thing of like, I don't care if you're a Trump supporter, you don't care about anything that's in that Mueller report. You think it's all bullshit. And if you're not a Trump supporter, we're at complete odds. And there is the same way that the way that OJ trial was. You thought Trump, OJ was innocent, or you thought he was guilty, and there was anger in it.
Let me ask you this question though: how many people do you feel? What percentage of the American public do you feel thought OJ was innocent?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Tony, do you have the real glove, the one that would have fit?
Okay, I asked Rob a question.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. It's funny because it was so polarizing, even in the newsroom at Court TV, and it was. I think I can't give you a percentage. I have no idea. But like I said, it doesn't matter. Whatever side you were on, you dug in. You dug in. It didn't matter what they pointed out in court.
I don't know. I don't know that I dug in. What was all that noise, Jeff? Are you making that noise?
No.
Oh, I think you were moving something and it made noise. That's what it was. Yeah. Well, anyway, I can't say that I had an opinion either way. I was one of these people that went, I just want to see what evidence they present. But then again, you weren't seeing everything. In fact, you weren't seeing what the jury saw. Sometimes the jury was sent out, and the cameras were still rolling, and the jury and the jury didn't see that part of it. So now you're making up your opinion based on what the jury hasn't seen. Now the jury comes back and makes their decision on what they've seen.
I will tell you that I believed OJ did it. But I also think that I thought that OJ got off because the police did such a bad job that they had to let him off.
The
Well,
line
fuck,
somebody
the whole
used,
case?
the line that somebody used was that the police framed a guilty man.
Yeah.
I don't know that I
that's a
buy
good
it.
point.
I don't
He
know
did,
that I
yeah,
mean,
perfect.
maybe, I
He
mean, the
planted
whole
the
thing with
evidence.
Mark Furman and him being a racist and all that. They're saying that Furman planted the glove, right? We'll never know. But to me, I felt like there wasn't a chain of custody with the evidence, and I watched this trial. I was there every day, right? I spent a lot of time in that control room with this, and you could just say the defense shot holes in the chain of custody. They went into the house and they took a blanket out of the Nicole's house and they put it over the body. Once you do that, you've contaminated the whole area with DNA from OJ, who has been in that house any number of times. Just the evidence itself, the chain of custody from the Asian guy. I can't remember his name.
Oh,
I can't remember his name right now. It's escaping me. But that whole thing, you're just like, you know what? They have to, this is a mistrial. Not a mistrial, but I mean, they screwed up so badly that you had to let him go. Even though I thought, obviously he killed her. It was just, at least in my mind, he killed her. But I felt like he got what he should have gotten, because they screwed up so bad. The police screwed up so bad.
Do you think that maybe the defense shouldn't have been that he was not guilty, but that he was driven insane by her actions towards him? Do you think he would have been able to make a case that way?
No.
Because I mean, I don't think
so, because he was living a life. He had gotten on an airplane. He had an appearance to go to. I was in Chicago or something like that.
Yeah.
He was living his life. I don't think you can claim insanity with something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so anyway. I think they did the right thing. They attacked the evidence. They attacked the way the police department did their work, and they did a bad job of it.
Yeah.
And again, I think I would say if you asked me back in the day, my answer would have been, he's guilty, but because they screwed up so bad, you can't put this guy in prison, because it would just completely subvert our entire system for that to happen. You can't screw up like that, because there might be a case where a guy looks like he did it, but he really didn't do it.
yeah.
You err on the side of caution. They screwed up. You can't put him in
What's
prison.
going to be
But they
funny?
got him with the civil trial.
Yeah. What,
You know
Tony?
what's going to be ironic? I guarantee you, when OJ passes away, if they let him donate his brain, I bet you he has that disease.
I would.
I would
Yeah.
wouldn't doubt it.
Could that?
He
surprise me.
definitely
Okay.
has.
Here's a good
Yeah,
question for.
he loses track of
Yeah,
time.
that's a
He
very,
definitely has
very,
that.
very good thought there, Tony. But I'll ask Rob. Rob, could he have used that as a defense today?
Today he could.
Today.
Yeah, today he could.
Yeah.
But again, you can't prove it until someone's dead.
Yeah,
They have to
too bad
open up
they
your
can't
brain.
do it yet.
Yeah,
They have to,
yeah.
So they'd have to kill him to show his innocence.
Wow.
Because they all have that same profile. They have flashes of rage. They say they lose track of time. They don't even remember what they do. And it sounds like OJ's probably an innocent guy because he's probably insane now because of that disease. They just didn't know it. He probably just flaps out. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it wasn't a big thing back in the 90s.
No, nobody knew
It
about
wasn't a big thing.
We
What do they
don't-
call that?
We don't hear much from him lately.
Well, I don't
No, is he
yeah.
still doing time or no?
No, he's been
No,
out of
he's out on bail. Not bail. He's out on
probation.
Parole.
Probation.
That's the
Parole.
word.
Well, that's good that he's out of trouble at least. Thank God. You would hope.
Well, for now.
Yeah, you're right, Alex. Give him time.
He doesn't have a wife to
Probably
kill.
easily played.
Yeah. I think. Well, if you think that's maybe the beginning point, I think you might. It's certainly a thought. I think I would have to say that if you want to use that as a beginning point, you still have to go back further to like the Watts riots, the riots here in New York City. I mean, those were all racial questions that were being attended to.
But
So
the
I
thing
guess you're
about
right.
the
60 years.
difference there, and I was young with the Watts riots, so I don't remember. But the way I see the OJ trial was the same way, with the two sides dug in, and nobody wanting to admit that they're wrong, and regardless of what they hear evidence-wise or see, they're sticking with their guy. That's what I mean. I don't know if that happened with the Watts thing, and I wasn't trying to make a racial. I wasn't trying to make any kind of a racial connection between this whole Trump thing and that. I was thinking more in terms of people who were just. I have to be right. I say OJ's innocent, and I never said he was innocent. I said that they screwed up on the trial, and you can't put a guy in prison that way, but I felt like he did it. But there were definitely a lot of people who felt OJ was innocent.
Josh, do you remember the OJ trial? I mean, well, who doesn't?
I mean, yeah, I remember it, but I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah,
very much.
Then because most Americans were riveted to their television sets. Your ratings over Court TV were the same kind of ratings that James Holhauser or whatever his name is getting on Jeopardy. I mean, they were in huge ratings. And
it was a crazy time.
So you think? So that could be right, Alex. You could be right. So the end of the '60s, and you're probably right, started the dissension.
Well, I'm trying to think of where we got into this political divide, because OJ was not a political divide, Rob. Was it? I don't think so.
I think it went along. It went along class lines, racial and class. The funny thing was that he was supported by people in Watts and people in black neighborhoods and such, but he never identified with those people.
Oh, he was always the whitest black guy in America.
Yeah. He was anything but that, but they identified with him because he was of the color of his skin.
Yeah.
It was an odd mix that he wound up being the lightning rod for racial dissension and separation and so on, that the blacks were coming to his defense, and yet he had never done anything for the black community, unless you consider jumping over baggage to be helping the black community.
When it happened, Court TV was part owned by NBC, and we had Jack Ford and a couple of other people who were working at NBC at the same time that they were working at Court TV. And if you talk to any of them, none of them believed OJ was guilty. I mean, this is before the trial. This is right after the slow speed chase. Yeah. They were all saying, there's no way, this guy is one of the greatest guys in the world. If you meet him in the halls, if you see him around, he's always got a smile and a handshake, and he's a man's man. There's no way he did this. That was what people thought of OJ. He was so well loved by everybody.
Well, I mean, he was so well loved that companies would pay him millions of dollars to be their spokesperson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What did you think, Phil? During that time?
He's quiet. I can't believe it.
Huh?
I was definitely one of those people that were riveted to the television. Matter of fact, I remember being in Dallas at a seminar, and we had the TV on. It was in 1995, I think, and that's that day. The day that I was in that seminar was the day that the verdict came down, and it was. It was pretty unusual. And as Rob said, there was a lot of stuff going on, racial tension, because of Rodney King and the verdict that they gave with that. So I think there was some backlash. That wasn't an all-black jury on OJ.
No, it wasn't.
Was it all?
No,
that they didn't convict.
No,
No, or it was a majority of black.
I don't even think it was a
well,
majority.
Rob, what do you remember? Because you covered it with Court TV.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what you don't ever see, and they were sticklers for it, was with the jury. And we never saw a juror on camera. So I don't know. And I don't remember the
and-
statistics of the jury.
Yeah.
but no jury are shown
For
on
one
camera.
reason or another, I think he had a pro-black jury. And I think the Rodney King thing, he had a pro-white jury. And so that made for some lines in the sand, and some of the reasons why, OJ walked, because there was some backlash over Rodney King. But, I think also OJ walked because his attorneys were better than the state's attorneys.
I don't think it was that at all, Phil. I think that it was, as Rob put it, that it was some of the worst policemen and police work that could possibly be done, and that they handed him.
Well, a lot of it was the establishment of Furman's use of the N word. And that's where that came out of.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only. Wasn't the only
but
thing.
The defense attorneys were able to establish that whether Furman is a bigot or not, and he probably isn't, he just had a big mouth. And
well, from what I heard, I heard that he had said, and from the tapes, he probably was.
Yeah, there were a lot of tapes of him.
Yeah, they had him on tape.
Yeah, they had plenty of tapes.
They fucked it up. I think they took evidence out, his trophies, things like that. It was like a free-for-all.
They let remember when everybody toured his house?
Yeah.
It was like a circus. They all toured his house. What the hell was that? If you think about that, it was. Well, the whole thing was it was unbelievable. You just every day you didn't know what you were going to see.
Yeah. And the Bronco with his buddy, the low-speed chase on the freeway.
AC
there was so much drama, and we were riveted to our TVs. Do I think that OJ
we all
did
had
it?
a side. We all had a side.
Yeah.
And you did you change your mind?
No.
Nobody changes their mind.
No.
Nobody changes.
I thought OJ did it.
That's why when I think about it, I think about where we are today and how, it doesn't really matter what's in that report. It's a 400-page report. Nobody has read it. I mean, Americans haven't read it, right?
Charlie's reading it.
Well, I've read 10 pages.
Yeah, How many pages?
10 pages out of the 400.
Yeah, it's
hard to read because it's a lot of crossed out.
Right. Nobody wants to read it, and everybody has a side, and you don't really care to be educated on both sides. Nobody really cares to be educated any more than they are. Everybody wants to hear what they want to hear. Everybody wants to believe what they want to believe, and that's the same way it was with OJ, and that's what I mean by it. I'm not drawing any racial parallels or anything like that. It's just people very early on drew lines in the sand, and that was it. And that's where we are with Trump today. Everybody's drawn lines in the sand. If you believe it, if you believe in Trump, then you believe in Trump. I don't care what we find out about him. I don't care what we find out about him in the next 6 months or a year. Yeah. You're never going to believe it, Phil. And we're never going to believe that this man isn't a corrupt, mess. We're just never going to believe that.
So, and that's where we stand today. But at what point did it become as uncivil as it has become? I don't think that during the OJ trial it became terribly uncivil. It did for maybe a short time, but then we went back to whatever we were doing.
We did not have Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Facebook and Twitter is nothing more than road rage.
That's right. You're right.
That's right.
That's where it came from.
Social media.
Charlie, what were you going to say?
The internet.
I was just going to point out that I think a lot of people in the black community did believe that OJ was guilty, but they wanted him to get off anyway.
Well, see, that's the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
We had seen so many white people, especially during the civil rights era, who are definitely guilty of crimes, then got off.
It's true.
And so we wanted a black guy to get off for one time. Yeah. And so we didn't care whether or not he was doing good things for the community or whatever. He was black. And we wanted a black guy to get off.
Okay, now let me ask you this, Charlie. Let me ask you this. You're black. Did you want him to get off?
Yeah, because at first I thought there's no. I mean, I've been a big football fan. I've actually seen O.J. Simpson play. He was playing for Southern Cal, and he came to play Northwestern when I was there. So I'd actually seen him play, and he was a great NFL player for what 11 years or something.
He ran for 2,000 yards that year in 12 games.
Yeah, and so
Heard of.
I didn't want to believe that, but as the evidence came in, and it became obvious that he really had done it. But even though he had done it, part of me still wanted him to get off.
Well, let's face it. Back in those days, there was even more false arrests and hassling of black people by police. Okay, Phil can argue no, but it was back then. It was terrible. Okay, today it's moderate today compared to what it was back then.
In L.A., you had a chief. His name was Gates, I think.
Yes, his name was Gates.
Yeah, there was a lot of corruption in the L.A. Police Department, but racism. Maybe this brought down some of it.
But racism ran rampant in police departments in those days, and this was a reaction by the black community. They didn't care if O.J. Simpson was guilty or innocent. They cared that he got off. And if he had the money to do it with, then they said, good, that's just getting even, And
to me, today it's the same thing. Trump supporters don't care what Donald Trump does. They care about the conservative judges on the Supreme Court, and they care about the religious right who's getting their way, and the abortion and all that. That's what they care about. Nothing else matters. That's to me why I see it as the same. Because nobody cares. Nobody cares. I can't find anybody who thinks that Donald Trump is a quality human being. He's the president of the United States. Everybody agrees that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, except maybe for Phil.
No, I don't think Phil thinks that he's this amazing guy. He just likes what he's doing. And so the means, and I've said this before, the means don't justify the means don't justify the ends, or the ends don't justify the means. Right? It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter how he lies, as long as the end game is,
Yeah.
But now, you're going to see. Phil, you voted yourself a 25% cut in pay.
Yeah. Jeff had his hand up.
I know I got a huge cut in pay. Yeah, really. Tariffs.
Jeff?
Jeff, yeah, but I don't have to sell Chinese stuff.
You have to buy it.
You have to buy it.
No, I don't.
Oh, Jesus. Yes, you do. And you don't even know when you're buying it. Yes, Jeff.
There's a million manufacturers
Jeff had his
out there.
hands up. Jeff had his hand up, okay? Jeff?
Thank you. I was thinking about these same problems in the time, and I thought about Vietnam. There was a major, major change in our country. A whole bunch of people got killed. President, brother, all kinds of black people got shot, killed, died for political reasons.
Lynched,
whatever you want to call it. Kids, remember there was two Jewish guys, young kids, walking around down south?
No, that was three of them. You mean
three of them.
Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think, from my perspective, this whole Vietnam thing was a waste, and it was wrong. And even the president quit.
Yep.
Because he realized it was wrong.
You mean Lyndon Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lyndon Johnson quit
that was
because
a big change in the world.
I think his line was he heard Walter Cronkite on the air one night and talking about how the war in Vietnam was bad because he had gone over there and he didn't like to give his opinion about stuff like that. But he said, I had to say it. I looked at it, and this war was all wrong. It was not a war we could win. And so he said it, and right after that, Lyndon Johnson said he wasn't going to run for another term. And what he said as a result was, if Walter Cronkite is against me, I just can't win. You know, I'm on the wrong side of this issue. And that's why he didn't run. And Nixon then was handed the ball, the football, and the day he went into office, they had a way to get out of the war in Vietnam. There was a chance of a peace accord, and he didn't go for it. But he finally went for the same plan 4 years later, after we lost another 20,000 men and women. So, you know, I mean, that was a real quagmire. That was really something. That divided this country like nothing. You think we're divided today. That was division, you know.
I think the division today, though, now, I think it's more angry today, as like what Phil said, because of social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just more angry today because, you know, you just can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it.
Yeah, I do, because I don't have social media, so I
Right.
don't pay attention to it. I don't
Right.
see it. I don't care, but I know it's there.
Yeah. Yes, Jeff.
Well, I talked to somebody tonight, and the first thing she started talking about was, I can't stand Trump and what he's doing to this country.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, that's my feeling about it, you know, and that I love this country, or I have loved it. I don't love it right or wrong. I love it when it's right, and when it's wrong, I try to change it. But I don't like where it's at today. I think it's very ugly. I think it's horrible.
Did anybody see the All in the Family reboot?
Yeah.
I mean, you watch it, and it's so apropos for today. Really, what's changed in 50 years?
Well,
it's nastier today, but what's really changed? The problems are the same. When you listen to Archie Bunker and Mike fight over things, they're fighting over things that we're fighting over today.
I would like to think that America has better angels, but that it's just not being brought out in us. We're being the media, for instance, as an example, is not fake media. It is ginned up media. It's media that's been ginned up so these networks can make money. Now, you know, when news wasn't money and it was a public service, we didn't have the same problems about reporting. But today, I mean, in the old days, you would have never seen CBS allow to go on CBS what goes on MSNBC or Fox every single day, that kind of bias. Mm-hmm. And what I find incredibly difficult to understand,
and the equal time rule,
well, is how MSNBC, for instance, can take a guy like Chuck Todd, who runs their flagship Sunday program, Meet the Press, and allow him to go on MSNBC and be completely biased. You know, you don't want your news guys to be biased. You want them to be the moderator. And the only one we have that way is Lester Holt. You know, Lester Holt, you don't know. In fact, somebody said the other day to me, Lester Holt's a conservative. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't know it watching him. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want a happy story before we get back to Surus?
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of a happy story. I don't know what's happy for the people who are affected by it. Even though the Andy Griffith Show premiered on CBS almost 60 years ago, do you realize that was 60 years ago that it went on the air? A lawsuit has just been filed alleging the network used the show's iconic theme, you know, the one that whistles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Andy and Opie walk near a lake, and Opie throws a rock. Well, they're using that song without the permission of its creators, Earl Hagen and Herbert Spencer, who, by the way, are credited on the show as being composers of the music on the show. The multi-million-dollar lawsuit was filed by the descendants of the song's creators. Besides being the network that originally televised the series, CBS currently holds the distribution rights. Now, here's the reason. The plaintiffs allege the 1978 agreement signed between Viacom and the song's creators only covered distribution platforms that were available at the time. Not VHS, not DVD, not Blu-ray, not on-demand streaming video. As such, the plaintiffs claim they are owed compensation for the television show's subsequent distribution. The report adds the lawsuit could signal a broader-reaching battle ahead for TV classics, especially as on-demand platforms continue to expand. It's a good question, isn't it?
It is. Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
And the question, of course, is here: what what's the story with this music, which was set up, which was okayed and signed for by the people that wrote it back then, as it pertains to now.
So it's that old? It's not public domain?
It's not public domain. No.
Wow.
No.
Man, there's going to be a big lawsuit there. That's going to be a gold mine.
Yeah. Jeff?
Yeah. Patents for music is 50 years.
What? No,
Didn't that change?
No, I think it changed. It is patents for music now are, I think, the life of the composer, plus something like 20 or 30 years, so that the relatives can make some money out of it.
So Elvis has been gone since 1977.
Yeah, but he didn't write all those songs.
That's true. He didn't write any of those
songs.
He
wrote. I think maybe he wrote. Did he write a song at all? Was he a writer at all?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no. Those were all written by like Lieber and Stoller and.
Right.
I'm trying to remember who wrote some of the stuff on Sun. Presley may have been credited with some of the Sun stuff. Yeah. So, not today.
Wow.
So. But
I don't know if that's a happy story though about the Andy Griffith Show.
Well,
because you know what's going to happen, don't you?
What?
They're going to strip that theme song off.
I don't think they can do that,
Why?
Because
Too late. Already bought the DVDs.
Yeah. How many people would complain about that?
Does that? I mean, that's never stopped a legal battle.
Well, do you know the first 19 episodes of Star Trek aren't in copyright?
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
Yeah.
That's where I didn't know it before.
And how they get you is with the music, because they do own the music rights. So if you show it, you got music rights there. Are you bored, Phil? Huh? Are you bored?
I have a fan on, and I'm trying not to. It's very hot in here for some reason, and so I'm not using the earplugs. I have the speakers on, and I'm just relaxed, sitting back, listening to you guys in a no Trump zone.
We're not even talking about Trump. We're talking about theme songs.
It's a no Trump zone. That's why you're not talking about Trump.
It's a no Trump zone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ray.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a different mic. I just want to check. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, so I thought I would mention that story because it could affect a lot of other music, I do have the story here about Netflix. And it says they have at least 5 projects currently filming in Georgia. A lot of stuff. If you look closely at the end credits of shows, a lot of shows are doing their shows in Georgia. Georgia has been very good at compensating them, giving them tax benefits, and so on, for bringing stuff into the state. And I see a lot of shows with that Georgia peach on it now. At the end. Not just Netflix, and there's several other companies that are rejecting them. But they say that they would rethink their entire investment in Georgia if the legislation known as the Heartbeat Bill were to become state law. The bill among the several that have passed in state legislatures in recent weeks, would outlaw most abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, usually as early as 6 weeks, which sometimes is before a woman knows she's pregnant. The bill, anyway, in a statement, Netflix said, "We have many women working productions in Georgia whose rights, along with millions of others, will be severely restricted by this law. It's why we will work with the ACLU and others to fight it in court. Given the legislation has not yet been implemented, we'll continue to film there, while also supporting partners and artists who choose not to. Should it ever come into effect, we'll have to rethink our entire investment in Georgia." Okay? So that's the way it was, Phil. So I thought I would just iterate. And the Disney statement was a little more oblique, in which it said that it intimated that they felt that their workers who were in Georgia would probably not want to work under those conditions. And so they would have to honor them and honor the fact that they wouldn't be able to get people to work in Georgia. So, you know, that's their way. Disney never made a political statement about it like Netflix did.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, I and many others have the right to stop buying Netflix. And, you know, if they decide to protest, and you say it's not a protest, but God damn it, it is, Georgia, and
it's their right. It's their right to do business with people they feel they want to do business with.
American Netflix, thank you very much. You know, and I'll go elsewhere.
Okay. Well, I can hardly wait to see you quit Netflix when this happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you will.
I quit Showtime. There was nothing to watch.
Well, because there was nothing to watch.
Yeah. A lot of good shows on Netflix.
What do you think, Josh, about these companies saying they may not do business?
But I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know why everyone acts like it's a big deal. Really, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, he's allowed to be, but I'm just saying I don't know why Phil would be upset about that. I mean, that's like I don't know. It's just like a Fox News reaction. I mean, I read that headline and I just, you know, then I go read the next headline. But certain people read that, I guess, and get upset. I mean, they can do whatever they want, I guess. It doesn't matter to me. And then if you don't like that particular company for whatever reason, as trivial as it may be to me, if it's important to you and you don't like them, then don't use them, I guess. That's okay.
Who is that hamburger chain that got into trouble a couple of years ago?
Was it hamburgers or was it Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. That was it. So
I don't eat there.
Haven't eaten there since.
Phil is frozen. I don't know if we lost him or not. Are you there, Phil? We lost him.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. Chick-fil-A, you know, would I stop going to Chick-fil-A? Absolutely.
I did.
And I have that right. So why doesn't Netflix have the same right not to do business in the state of
confusion?
Yeah.
Georgia, Alabama.
Right. So I mean, I don't know why anybody would be upset.
I mean, it's just like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, I mean, people just kind of think that, well, this bothers me, and I'm upset that it doesn't bother you. That's like where I start having problems. It's like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh, I'm watching, you know, the football games, the NFL. Oh, I can't believe you. How can you watch that shit? They just condone violence and it's like, get the fuck away from, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's my fucking house. It's my fucking money. Shut up. Get away from. I mean, that's. But it's just like you get reactions. Like it's like it bothers me, so it should bother you too. And it's just like I don't know. I like to think I'm good about not being that way or caring. It's like if someone were to say something to me like that, and I think that's stupid, I just say that in my head. I don't tell them that, but some people just maybe I'm shy. I don't know, but they'll just fucking come out. How can you do that? It's like I can do that because I'm allowed, because I'm fucking grown up and I have a job and I make my own money. I mean, because I can make my own decisions.
Well, also, I mean, it is a situation in which everybody has the right to do business with people they want to do business with, and not to do business with people they don't want to do business with.
Right.
And that's a major sticking point here. And I I certainly what's going on here. Everybody.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know. Either Phil hung up on us because he was mad, or he got...
No, he was having network problems. You could tell he was breaking up.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do with his square. I can take it and make it disappear. Let me see here. By going, which is he, number 3? I can just do that, and we get. Oh boy, here we go. So there we go. So we got rid of him for the time being until we hear from him. Although I can move somebody else into that place so that we don't have a problem. Well, here comes Phil again. Okay, all right. Obviously, Phil had some kind of problem. Were you having a problem with your connection, Phil?
No, the breaker popped.
Oh, really? Oh. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to, figure it out which one it was dark. And,
yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was because I was protesting the Netflix thing, so they got me back here.
No, what we were saying is that if you don't want to do business with some place, if you don't agree with Netflix, you're not going to do business with them because of their decision. But the point is that Netflix has the same kind of right you have, that if they don't want to do business with people that they are making decisions that they don't agree with, and they can take their business somewhere else, they have the right to do that.
This is new. It used to be that businesses protesting their decisions. It didn't happen. This is fairly new.
You don't understand. This is not different. What this is a company making a decision based upon their employees and the welfare of their employees. I mean, realize that Disney, if they, let's say, are making the next Captain Marvel movie in Georgia, as they did the last one, has women working, that all of a sudden a woman gets pregnant and now she can't get an abortion, so maybe she goes to another state to get it, and now she comes back to work in Georgia and they arrest her. They have to watch out for women. They have to watch out for their own employees' welfare.
Well, this is a fairly new look on things, because Disney was a pretty conservative company, and
since when?
Under Disney.
Well, that was
Roy
years ago.
And,
no, he was a fervent anti-communist, but Disney also had a liberal side to him as well, believe it or not. Yes, Ray.
Well, up until, I'm not sure what year it was, but the Republican Party was for a woman's right to choose more so than the Democratic Party. And also, Phil, wasn't it the conservative Supreme Court that said that a company is equal to a person?
Yes.
Okay, so
doesn't
they're
necessarily
acting like
mean I agree with it, and it also, I'm just saying that it has changed, that the
so convenient.
Well, it's the.
No, I mean, it's like you're always like whatever, like it's the whole. It's
years
like
ago.
You're like Fox News. You're like listening to Fox News. To me.
well, it's maybe where I get my stuff from, but
Okay.
years ago, you didn't have this happening, and all I'm doing is making a comment on that there has been a change, and now businesses are. Yeah, well, they're pushing their whatever agenda that the heads of that business want to push. Whether it's
they always done that?
Yeah, but we're not talking agenda here, Phil. Phil, we're not talking agenda
They
here.
said it's because their
They
employees might
say
not
it's
want to work
because
there.
it's because of their employees. They also find that if their employees don't want to work there, and they can't get employees to work there, then they can't do business there. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. That works.
I think it's because most of the employees in Hollywood now are really liberal, and they know that. So they're just thinking ahead, and if people don't want to go there to work, they're going to be in big trouble.
If they try
because they don't hire people from Georgia mostly to work. They bring people in from Los Angeles.
Yep.
And
most of the people has a tremendous amount of film business.
Yeah, they do, but they're telling you they bring people in from Los Angeles just like they do in San Francisco and every other market. They don't hire, for the most part, or maybe for like driving jobs and stuff, they'll get people from Georgia. But for the actual production of the movie or the TV show, it's all going to be LA people. And that's
the reason when they've been going to Georgia, I mean, a lot of times they say Georgia on the end of it, like, this was Georgia made or whatever. And the film may have been shot in Louisiana. But the thing is that Georgia has tax incentives, and so they do a lot of the production there, or they do use that as the home base. And they've gotten a lot of business. In fact, you used to go to Canada to do it cheaply, and now you go to Georgia to do it cheaply.
No unions?
Huh?
I would imagine it wouldn't matter whether it was union or not.
It had nothing to do with unions. It has to do with tax incentives. New York gets a lot of business lately because when a production comes into New York and wants to do a movie here, this city pays them a certain amount of money or gives them tax incentives to do the production here. That's why we have the Made in NYC thing that they put at the end of shows. Gotham was done here. Quite a few shows were done here last year. So that's the reason that exists.
Well, I was just going to say, so what's the difference then? I mean, I'm just asking the question. What's the difference between Netflix saying, we don't like, this piece of legislation, therefore we're not going to do business with this entity or, this state, and, to pull a name out of thin air, JP Morgan Chase spending $1 bazillion, to 365 days of the year try to get laws made that are in their favor, or Citibank, or any of the, what's big businesses and small businesses, but especially big alike, have always asked for favorable legislation and have made their opinions known in that way and their reactions known in that way. Yeah. And to be fair, unions have said, we don't like this legislator or that, don't vote for this guy, and we'll spend our money trying not to get this. So I'm just saying, what's the difference? I'm just saying Phil's acting like this just happened.
Well,
I just don't think that it did. I think it's always happened.
I would ask Phil another question, and that question is, knowing how you feel about things, if you can do it, do you buy anything from China? Or would you, if you found something was made in China, decide to boycott China because you don't like what they're doing to the United States, in your opinion?
I offer what's available.
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you about that.
I'm happy about the tariffs.
I'm not asking you about that, Phil. I'm talking about you personally. Would you buy products from China if you knew?
If I have a choice, I would rather buy the American-made or a non-China-made product.
Okay, and so therefore you're boycotting China, much like Disney is planning to boycott or Netflix is planning to boycott Georgia.
Yeah, but I'm an individual.
What's the difference?
What's
There's
the
a
difference?
big difference.
What
is the difference?
And by the way,
I'm not following that there's any difference.
Because there are many people that work for Netflix and work for Disney that don't agree with their stance on abortion, and therefore those people are not being fairly represented. You know, if you believe that abortion is wrong,
wait a minute, Phil. When did the corporation suddenly, number one, release its personhood, which you're denying here, and secondly, when are you making the decision that a company cannot make a decision and that the employees have any say-so in that business decision?
Well, for instance, Google had decided that they were going to get out of certain technology because the employees felt that it aided the war effort. What's happening is there are people that believe in the war effort that work at Google, but they're being silenced because those other people don't believe that they should build anything that aids the war effort. And in this case,
I don't even get what you're trying to say, Phil. All I'm trying to say to you is you have the right to not buy something from China, okay? Right. And Netflix has the right not to make films in Georgia.
That's fine, and I have the right not to pay Netflix
and I'm sure if you cancel tomorrow, they're going to hurt like crazy.
Well, but there's a lot more of me than you think.
Well, but again, I'm just saying, what's the difference? I'm sure that from the mid-level executive on up at Charles Schwab or J.P. Morgan Chase, they love tax laws the way they are. And for all the people who, just sell the stuff and make $80,000 a year, or for the people who are actually company employees and not contractors who clean the offices, they probably don't like tax laws the way they are. Yet the company that they work for is using company money to lobby for the tax laws that only benefit the mid-level executive and on up. So what's the difference? I mean, that's what I'm saying. What's the difference?
Josh, your theory is life isn't fair. And
no, I didn't say that. I said, what's the difference?
I didn't say you didn't say
what you're complaining about and that. There's no difference.
I know that life's not fair, and I can put my money where I want it to go.
And so can Netflix.
If I feel strongly enough about abortion, which I don't, but if I did feel strongly enough about it, and I didn't want to support their stance, I don't have to do business with them.
That's right.
I'm not denying that.
Yeah, that's. But the companies have the same decision. They can make the same decision.
Sure, they can. I just observed that in the last several years, it's changed.
I don't know that it's changed so much. I think what's happened is the divisiveness in this country is forcing all this crazy. Yeah. Where on opposite ends, no one is in the middle anymore.
It's almost
so you're seeing it more. I don't think it's changed.
I mean, I have no reason to go there right now, but I don't think that I would probably go to Georgia for any reason, knowing the way they are right now. You got to remember, though, Turner still has large investments in Atlanta, don't they? Do they still have? They still have CNN down there, don't they?
Yeah, but I think. You mean Turner Broadcasting?
Well,
not Turner himself.
Well, CNN.
You know what it is? Can I say something?
Sure.
You know what's strange too? It's almost like now I'm just gonna bring. Like I was watching a movie where they were discussing movies with directors, and they had Tarantino on, and they were asking him a question, and the lady goes, "How come you didn't give more lines to the female actresses?" It's almost like these people want to look for like a problem, like do you have an issue?
One of the reasons
it seems like these people have too much power. I think it's just a movie.
One of the reasons is the name of the picture was Inglourious Bastards.
No, it was actually the newer film, though, Alex, that he's doing. It was at Cannes, and I was watching the thing on one of these channels, and they had the interviews. I was watching a little bit. It's almost like, I know it's a free country, they can ask whatever they want, but it almost looks like in today's society, does the press try to look for an issue where it doesn't exist to make a story that's not there?
No, they do that. Yes, Phil.
Glenn Close came out the other day talking about the Me Too movement and that this toxic masculinity and that it's being overdone, and maybe that's the same thing that's going on. If you look at the thing, go ahead. Rob.
Well,
I was gonna build on what Tony said, and I said it the last time I was on. I think I'm sick and tired of hearing things like America's ready for a gay president. America's ready for a president who could do the job. Who gives a fuck what he is?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sick of all
care
this
who he's
crap.
sleeping with.
Yeah, who gives a rat's ass?
Yes,
what the person is.
Right.
You know that we've already had a gay president. I forget his name, but there was a president whose companion was a man and lived with him in the White.
No.
Before Lincoln. The hell was his name? Yeah, but he was gay.
He was our only non-married president.
Yeah, and he had a companion who was a man, and pretty much everybody knew that they had a thing going on. It didn't really matter
Polk,
to people.
Right? It wasn't Polk.
I'll have to look it up. I can't remember who it was, but we've already had a gay president, is my point. I just don't remember his name. Not that it really matters that much, but
well, I don't think I think that we certainly have the right to ask that question, but really the question is, when are we going to get a really good president?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I don't care.
I think that I think we've got a real problem when we start saying, well, we need a gay president, or we need a Hispanic president, or whatever. No, we just need a good president. And I mean, I have to admit, I'm tired of old white guys. I'm really tired of old white guys being president, but. So that's why Obama was refreshing.
I have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I have
James Buchanan. James Buchanan was the one.
Yeah.
You know how you're going to have a good president when you don't have any of these parties anymore. No more Democrats. No more Republicans. No more everybody just following party lines. Every man for himself.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with parties, but I do think that the people who just follow the line, Tony.
That's the problem.
Of course, that's the problem is the dogma that exists within these parties. I remember a time when I was a kid where you liked a certain Republican because he was a liberal Republican. Yes, there was such a thing as a liberal Republican. McCain was a liberal Republican.
I like McCain, now that you think about it. I thought he was a decent guy.
I happen to like in his time, after the fact, once I started looking at him a little more honestly, I happen to like Goldwater.
Yeah,
I thought he was.
How about Lieberman, who was a Democrat?
I don't like Lieberman at all. But that's I've interviewed the man, and I thought he was. I thought he was a very conflicted human being about his politics.
Yeah, he was.
And I just don't know that I can. Side with somebody that conflicted about his politics.
I mean, somebody that can cross the aisle and
no, that's not what he did.
No. He was a very conservative Democrat.
Yes.
Now, when I said there were liberal Republicans, I didn't say very liberal Republicans, and I don't think I would say very conservative Democrat, because if you're a very conservative Democrat, then go over to the party that is conservative, and caucus with them. That's the problem, okay? And all I'm saying is politics, people cross the aisle all the time. You didn't know how certain bills were going to come out because people were working at it together. But they don't anymore.
Reagan and Tip O'Neill, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, they sit around today and they just say, this is where I am, and I'm not moving. I'm not budging. I mean, I'm going to say this, Phil, and this is going to drive you crazy, okay? But how any of these fucking Republicans, half of them are decent people, decent Republicans, how they can just absolutely excuse everything that Trump does and make an excuse and be in lockstep with excuses is beyond me. I think it's undignified.
I think that the reason they can do it is that they don't believe the media that is saying
bullshit,
all the negative stuff.
Phil. Bullshit.
And they look at the things that he's doing, whether it's working on the border.
Can they look at him and look at the stuff he says
China?
And look at the stuff he does and honestly feel that he is a decent enough human being to side with him on everything? I mean, whatever he does.
He doesn't have to be a decent human being to do the job.
Yes, he does.
There were plenty of people.
Yes, he does, Phil.
That's an interesting point, Phil. That's a very interesting point. And that's where I think Democrats and Republicans or conservatives and liberals part ways, because we believe that he does need to be a decent person and that he shouldn't lie and that he shouldn't be dishonest and that he should be transparent. How do you trust somebody who's lying all the time? How do you trust what they say? How do our allies trust what he says?
And also, let me bring something else. Let me bring something.
But he does everything on a whim.
Let me bring something else up here. Is that the president?
Yeah, but that's not a process.
Okay, let me finish. Let me finish.
Chaos.
When you have a president, one of the things that he does is he sets the tone for the country. He sets the tone for the discourse. He sets the tone for the morality. So whatever tone he sets is the way the country's going. This man doesn't set any positive moral tone for this country. There is nothing he does that engenders that. And as the president of the United States, that's one of his duties, believe it or not.
I believe that he's standing up to the tyrants in China that are at war with us, and they're trying to steal our technology, and they want to take over.
Go ahead. You can go believe that.
Our way
go
of
right
life.
ahead and believe that. Go right ahead and believe that. And keep living in the dark. Yes, Rob. By the way, next time you do the show, Rob, don't have that light in back of you, because every time you move your head, you either get dim or lighter. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Rob, it's time you go to Home Depot and you get a couple of lights and
Alexa,
you light yourself up.
Turn off the living room.
Oh, you got it working.
Oh, there we go. There, we can barely see you now. But
I see him. He's fine.
But it's better, What were you saying, Rob? You were saying something there.
I don't remember.
Ray had raised.
Yes, Ray.
With Trump.
I mean, right. I don't believe Trump is a decent person, but also his policies. He doesn't make plans. He just does things on a whim. And he apparently he even befuddles his own staff, and they have to go running around trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So, I mean, not only is he not a decent person, but he doesn't really know what he's doing economically. He doesn't even understand basic economics.
You mean like the 3.2% growth that we have now?
That's about the only thing you can point to, Phil, and that isn't even really a growth. Have you seen the stock?
Could also
have you seen the stock market in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's gone down 300 points yesterday because of the Mexico.
No, it's gone down more than 300 points in total.
What he's doing with the
completely
tariffs,
ignores that.
Our Congress
just
is not going to let him
Phil
get
just
anything
ignored
through.
that. Phil just ignores that.
No, our Congress is not going to let him get anything through. So the only way that he can manipulate what's going on, for instance, at the border and what's going on with China, is to use tariffs. And Tony, what do you think of tariffs?
I actually like the tariffs.
Really?
But I have to say,
do you like paying?
I do like the tariffs.
Do you like paying for it?
You're going to pay.
A tariff is on you. It's not on them.
I'm going to tell you why I like it.
All right.
You know why I like it? Because I'm going to use more.
We've got a really dicey. Hold on a second.
Your connection.
Hold on a second. We got a very.
The place I work at. Yeah.
We got a very dicey Skype tonight for some reason. Everybody's not exactly as clear as they normally are.
I like the idea of the tariffs.
Oh, really? Really? Because you do know a 25% tariff comes out of your pocket.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, his internet's all screwed screwed up.
Yeah, his
I don't understand why people like these tariffs. We're gonna pay for it.
Right. Yep. That's why I said to Phil, you voted for a 25% cut in your salary.
No, because.
But you know what? Can I?
No,
can I say one thing?
Tony.
Like
I asked you a question, Tony.
75% of the stuff from China, and they raised the price for.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they raised the price because they got.
Tony, check your connection. Check your internet
up,
connection. We're losing you.
Yeah, let me check my connection.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My brother's company just raised by 25% the cost of all of their products.
Yeah.
But it didn't go up 25%. It went up 10 and then 15.
That's 25%, Phil.
They raised it by 25%, and those prices will never come back down. What they will do is they'll wait until they have to raise it again.
I remember studying.
Prices aren't going to go back down.
Some companies will raise the price of the American goods to offset the benefits of the tariffs on the Chinese goods. Shaw Industries, which is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, is a company I deal with, and that's what they did, and I wasn't happy about it. They don't seem to be raising the American products on this 15% raise. They did it with the 10. But they don't seem to be doing it with the 15
All I'm
yet.
saying is that a tariff is a tariff on us. It's not a tariff on them. Maybe it'll encourage us not to buy as much of those products as we would. But the fact is, we're probably going to buy them. We're just going to buy less of them. And the fact is that they will still be making the money off of those products.
The problem also with the Chinese is that they manipulate their currency.
I am looking for an air conditioner right now. I need an air conditioner for this room.
You should have bought it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, you cannot buy an air conditioner that hasn't gone up 25%. Okay?
There's got to be some that are made in Korea.
Very few. LG.
Yeah, that's Korean, right?
And I'm sure they've raised the tariff on that too. The trouble with Trump is, basically, that he knows nothing about business.
Right.
He is not a good businessman. He is a terrible businessman. Always was and continues to be. And he applies that same terrible business sense to this country now that he did with his own company.
So don't vote for him.
I don't plan to. But some dopes in this country just might, like you, Phil.
Yeah.
And
air conditioners are made in the USA.
Yeah.
I wish they would just get rid of this damn electoral college.
What air conditioners are made in the USA?
Okay, Home Depot has one called MIDI Easy Control, 6,000 BTUs for $199. Cold Front has I think, see what air conditioners are made in the USA? Yeah, this is a Cold Front 8,000 is $366.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else that looks like it fits over a door. So, that's $1,500. $469 for 12,000 BTUs. Cold Front, and but Home Depot has the 6,000 BTU, which is probably what you need for $199.
Yeah.
And
are you
didn't you say you had 5,000 BTUs, and it's just at the edge of?
Yeah, I figure I can do 6 and not have a problem.
All right. Well, Home Depot, and I think they deliver if it's over a certain price.
Yeah.
It's called MIDEA, MIDEA, Easy Cool.
I'll get one from China because I like the Chinese. I went to China and they were
Why are we imposing tariffs on Mexico now? What's that?
It's due to the border issues that Trump is saying. Trump is saying that that Mexico isn't doing anything to stop the migrants at their border or to deal with them while they're in their country, and that they're allowing them to flow through. And Trump is also saying that because of that they're able to send their poor people out of the country, that the cartels are able to run drugs and control what's going on and fit more drugs into our country.
And what Phil said is 100% correct. He's doing this because Congress won't let him do anything else.
Correct.
So he's manipulating what he can manipulate, which is
the tariff.
which is a horrible thing.
Yeah, because that has nothing to do with the actual problem.
If Congress worked with him on the border, then maybe
Congress
wouldn't have
would work
to use
with
it.
him.
They were working.
They were working with him, but he's not willing to.
He said no.
He said it's completely my way or the highway. He wouldn't negotiate at all. I saw him on television do that.
Yes.
I saw
it. We all saw it.
That's because they weren't giving him a penny for the wall. Pelosi said you will not get 1 penny for the wall.
They gave him money already, and he hasn't used it.
Schumer, or what's his name? The guy, not Schumer. Who's the guy in the Senate who stopped the deal?
Okay, that's
the deal's gone through.
Hey, that's a theme song. You hear that?
Right.
That's a theme song. Got to get out of here for the next show, which is Jack Bishop in the Intersection. Hey, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Charlie, appreciate it. Phil, appreciate it. Rob, good seeing you again. We like to get you away from baseball. And see, we actually kind of didn't. We talked about a lot of other things. Oh, there he is. He's in his entertainment room. Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you to Tony, and thank you to Ray. Okay, that's our citizen panel, and if they'll all kind of wave goodbye, I'll wave back. Okay, and you can all wave out there as well. Okay, that's it, folks. That's our citizens panel for tonight. Let me hang up on him here so that we can make way and leave this line open for the intersection. I'm Alex Bennett. That's it for tonight. We'll be back again come Tuesday, right after the exchange with Damian Chaplin over most of the same GapNet. In the meantime, I'll see you at 10 o'clock. Tuesday night, same time, same station in life, and in the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye, everybody.